watching The Morning Show on Fox 4 Beaumont.
Right now, though, the McFaddin-Ward House is taking a trip back in time to discuss the evolution of perfumes. Nicole Murray is live this morning from that McFaddin-Ward House, and she has today's aromatherapy. Everything we need to know, right, Nicole?
Everything we need to know about perfumes. And we're actually in Mamie's bedroom right now. And of course, she was a perfume connoisseur, as to say. And these are some of the things that she enjoyed, some of the perfumes she had, and also just her daily routine of getting things ready and the scents and things that she's enjoyed. And Barbara Herman joins us, and she's actually going to be our speaker that's going to be going on this evening. And she's going to be talking about all the different scents. And you said, you know, the scents of the 20th century, correct? Yeah. You've kind of followed it to see how things have evolved. And talk to us a little bit about that, like where you started and how you got involved with writing your book.
Yeah, so I started writing Scent and Subversion, Decoding a Century of Provocative Perfume, a few years after I started my blog, and that was just a total kind of an accident. I started reading about perfume and online culture, and there are books, and next thing I know, I'm like ordering perfumes from eBay, and it just kind of, I started falling down the rabbit hole, and the blog turned into a book, and here we are. But basically, I describe the book as my smelling myself, smelling my way through the 20th century, because a lot of people do history about fashion and beauty, but they don't focus a lot on perfume, and I thought there were a lot of stories there to be told.
Yes, but Mamie was alive. What would be some of the scents that she would be enjoying in comparison to, say, what we might enjoy today, or maybe the ladies in the 80s?
What she would have enjoyed from perfumes today?
Or just from when she was alive? Yeah,
for sure. Some of these fragrances I curated here, I know that she wore, like Chanel No. 5, you know, Shalimar, and then I brought some other things from the 20s and 30s that I thought that she would probably like Lanvin's Mycin, and things like that, maybe Bandit and Fracasse. But all of these perfumes are really like signature perfumes. They have a lot of personality and they're very powerful, which is what drew me to talking about perfume, because I was surprised that perfumes that people would describe as old lady perfumes had so much personality.
And, you know, I go back to that because I'm thinking about, you know, when my grandmother, you know, she had a very, you know, strong perfumes that she enjoyed, but then my mother was very, you know, light and, you know, not, you barely could smell them. So, you know, you were saying that about every 10 years, the perfumes change.
Yeah, and I think that evolution from powerful, almost even masculine smelling perfumes, because perfumes in the 20s and 30s often had tobacco notes and leather notes for women. And then, you know, as the decades progressed and you starting to get to the 70s and 80s, even though 80s perfumes were very big and bold, for the most part, they were starting to tone it down because women were, you know, entering the workforce, and not everyone wants to smell like a big flower when they're at work. I mean, I appreciate when women do, but, you know, sort of the birth of the office scent came to be.
All right, and of course, you're going to be doing a lecture series this evening. Really quickly touch on what you're going to be talking about.
What I'm going to be talking about is how I got into perfume, what it is that some of these perfumes revealed about culture, even politics, and about women's position in society. So perfume is this interesting thing that like reflects what's happening, but it also helps shape it.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Again, we're at the McFaddin-Ward House, and you can come down this evening for the lecture series and enjoy it and learn all about the different scents of the 20th century. All right, Jillian, we're tossing it back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Nicole. Really interesting. A lot to learn there. I learned a thing or two just now. So again, that's coming up tonight. It is 8:23 now. Tonight, the McFaddin-Ward House is taking a trip back in time to talk about the evolution of perfumes. Nicole Murray's live there this morning, finding out a little bit more, getting us a little bit of a preview. And this is something I've never thought about, but it's an interesting topic.
It sure is, and that's exactly what our speaker said tonight. She said that she kind of started to just think about perfumes and the scents and everything like that. And she said, you know, I'm going to take a little bit of a history lesson. And she said it ended up being a rabbit hole for her, and she has just enjoyed it and to taking all the different scents in. And she says it changes about every 10 years or so. And Barbara Herman, she joins us. And of course, you know, like you said, you've taken this rabbit hole and you've ended up with a wonderful book to tell us about. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, so Scent and Subversion, Decoding a Century of Provocative Perfume, is really a record of my sniffing my way through the 20th century. It started out with fragrances in the 20s and 30s, and I was really taken by how powerful and, you know, even masculine some of those fragrances were. So I was like, this is a grandmother's perfume, but it's so much more interesting than what I have right now. So that's sort of how this all started.
And you say it changes about every 10 years. Kind of explain that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of things, sometimes all at once, but, you know, let's say there's a decade with very powerful perfumes. The next decade, people might want to pull back and have something a little lighter. It could represent something that's going on culturally, like the women's movement, when fragrances started getting a little bit lighter and freer. And then in the 80s, as we know, the year of the decade of the shoulder pads, the perfumes had shoulder pads too. They were really powerful, made statements, and the 90s became minimalist. So, you know, there's all sorts of things that impact what the styles are, but it's ever changing, and it's very interesting.
It sure is. And of course, we're here at the McFaddin-Ward House. We're actually inside Mamie's bedroom, and as you can see, you know, she loved the different colognes and perfumes and things like that. And, you know, this is where she actually sat and you know, enjoyed, you know, combing her hair and putting those perfumes on and things like that. What do you think she probably would have worn?
I see Mamie as a Shalimar lady, My Sin, Scandal, fragrances that really made a statement, but were still, you know, feminine for the time. And I think that's what's interesting about a lot of these fragrances is they have a kind of conventional aspect and then an unconventional aspect that let women express things that they, you know, might not do directly.
All right, and of course you are going to be speaking tonight. What are some of the topics that you're going to touch on?
I'm going to talk about how I got into perfume. I'm going to talk about how I learned through sniffing these perfumes and doing research that they reflected what was going on in the culture, particularly around women and their changing roles. And, you know, and there's a marketing aspect. These ads told me a lot too. So.
And I know your book kind of takes traveling back in time as it did the different scents, you know, coming up to now. Do you have maybe a prediction of what the scents are going to be like in the future?
I think the one prediction you can always make about fashion or perfume or beauty or anything is that there's going to be a cycle. So like the 90s were the clean, minimalist scents, and then, you know, niche perfumers, indie perfumers started making sort of darker, more interesting scents, but now there's pushback and there's a clean, natural perfume movement. So it's just, it's predictable that it's always going to keep shifting, but I'm sure there are going to be interesting things that I can't predict.
All right, thanks so much, Barbara. We appreciate it. Of course, if you want to hear more about Barbara's journey, you can come on down here to the McFaddin-Ward House. Doors open at 6 o'clock, and the lecture series starts at 6:30. Jillian, tossing it back to you in the studio.
That sounds like a really interesting thing. If you don't have plans tonight, hey, check it out. They've always got really good series going on there at the McFaddin-Ward House.